Caitlin Clark happens to be the new woman, right? And she happens to be white. And, Sean, you tell me if I'm wrong, but from what I've seen, they out there knocking her ass around.
While Caitlin is fantastic and I think she's going to have an incredible career in the WNBA, there are women that were worthy of coverage prior to her arriving, and I just will not be silenced when it comes to that.
Caitlin Clark is becoming the best player in the entire WNBA, not because she's white, because she's that good.
I would actually argue that it hurts the game more if they had given her a roster spot over someone more deserving.
So go ahead and argue.
That's exactly what I'm saying, because I think it makes a mockery of the women's game. If the focus on, now we just have to have people because of marketing and their intention, and they're not as talented, and we're not putting the...
Look, everywhere you turn, Indiana Fever is breaking records. All Cheryl Swoops did was validate all the speculation that there's folks hating on Caitlin Clark.
Ever since she exploded onto the national stage, Caitlin Clark has been a constant topic for sports talk shows and basketball analysts. Mentioning her name almost guarantees higher ratings, and commentators are eager to seize that opportunity. Opinions about Clark vary widely and have evolved alongside her growth as a player, though media personalities often focus less on her on-court performance and more on the broader implications of her presence in the WNBA. This has naturally led to plenty of heated quotes from high-profile voices, sparking debates across social media. What sets elite basketball analysts apart from everyday reporters is their willingness to interpret events through a personal lens, even at the risk of being wrong. Clark's statistics and the Indiana Fever's record are indisputable, but predicting her career trajectory or evaluating her impact on women's basketball invites endless speculation. Seasoned NBA and WNBA experts, having spent decades analyzing the game, at least bring valuable perspective to these discussions. Still, some may carry hidden agendas or thrive on provocation, making it important to place their words in context. A commentator known for stirring controversy might simply be chasing reactions, while analysts with a reputation for balance and fairness carry far more weight. Among the most credible voices is Michael Wilbon, a veteran NBA analyst respected throughout the industry. Active in sports media since the late 1970s, Wilbon has worked for some of the most prestigious outlets and built a reputation for candid, unflinching commentary. With his direct style and willingness to tackle sensitive topics, his take on Caitlin Clark, while sharp, offers valuable insight into both her image and her influence on the sport.
Not going to find that white American star in men's basketball. Caitlin Clark is that. And she brings people into the tent because she's great and she's unique. In this case, she's white in a sport of black people. That's part of the deal. Part of the deal.
No argument on any of it.
This narrative stretches back decades, even to the era of Larry Bird. Notably, the last 3 white players to win the NBA MVP award were all born and raised outside the United States: Steve Nash from Canada, Dirk Nowitzki from Germany, and the current MVP, Nikola Jokic of Serbia. At present, there are no American-born white superstars in men's basketball, though Duke freshman Cooper Flagg may soon change that. This context helps explain Caitlin Clark's appeal to many everyday American fans, who are eager for a homegrown star to rally around. Michael Wilbon acknowledges Clark's talent but places equal emphasis on her broader significance, both her unique role in the sport and the racial dynamics that shape the conversation around her. Interestingly, another respected NBA analyst, Mike Greenberg, shares Wilbon's view of Clark's cultural importance and her ability to captivate audiences. Coming from a white perspective, Greenberg highlights how valuable Clark is not only to the US national team but also to American fans in general. He has gone further by offering a detailed case for prioritizing the league's long-term health, framing Clark as a central figure in that effort.
People who are watching the Olympics are a lot of people who might be very interested in Caitlin Clark and might not be that interested in basketball. And so if you have Caitlin Clark on that team and all of a sudden they're watching, they might all of a sudden become big fans of Breanna Stewart and Sabrina Ionescu and the other best players in the league right now, of which she candidly at this particular moment is not. So that would be the argument for putting her on the team.
While Mike Greenberg's comments were originally tied to Caitlin Clark's omission from the US Olympic team, they can just as easily be applied to her WNBA experience. Clark carries the unique burden of serving as both an ambassador for the sport and a competitor expected to perform at the highest level. In some ways, her massive profile may even work against her, the US coaching staff may have prioritized winning gold over boosting the game's popularity, her media portrayal as the savior of the WNBA hasn't necessarily helped her standing among peers either. Many players greeted her arrival with cold stares, sharp elbows, and hard fouls. More troubling still, some veteran NBA commentators dismissed this treatment as routine, framing it as simply part of the competitive culture. Analyst Mark Jones has acknowledged that much of the early hostility toward Clark carried racial undertones, yet he stops short of drawing a firm distinction between healthy competition and outright bullying. He put it bluntly when addressing the racial dynamics at play in the Caitlin Clark conversation.
I say that the black girls are being mean to her. I'm saying that just because, relative to college basketball at least, this league seems to be a whole lot blacker than women's college basketball. It just happen to be a lot of black women playing in this league. And Caitlin Clark happens to be the new girl and a new woman, right? I could be bad about it.
If this is the strongest argument man can make, he needs to try harder. Despite being part of a minority himself, he seems to suggest that a majority can act with impunity within the WNBA's microcosm. That notion is simply wrong. Caitlin Clark deserves to be treated with dignity regardless of her skin color. Put differently, if the best white basketball player in the world is subjected to this kind of treatment, what hope is there for lighter-skinned players who are just fighting to secure roster spots? WNBA veterans, many of whom aspire to be champions of equality and tolerance, should know better, and do better. Yet, Clark doesn't appear fazed. Even under relentless media scrutiny and facing physical, aggressive defenses every night, Indiana's star guard keeps improving. In fact, according to one of the most popular sports journalists in America, the adversity may be fueling her rise. Bill Simmons, widely admired for his sharp analysis and clever writing, has made it clear that he believes Clark thrives on criticism. In his view, she seems to embrace being targeted and uses it as fuel to elevate her game.
Caitlin game last night was, and I didn't get to watch it because I was doing an event, so I had to come back and zoom through it.
Oh.
Like the revenge factor of it. There's definitely, she has that quality that a lot of the great athletes have, where
While Caitlin Clark doesn't appear to hold a grudge outwardly, no one can truly know what's going through her mind during WNBA games. Bill Simmons, however, has spent decades observing the game's greatest players and understands the psychology of elite athletes. His assessment of Clark deserves attention. If he's right that she channels slights into fuel and possesses that killer instinct, it bodes extremely well for her long-term career. Players with that mentality often prove immune to adversity, thriving when the odds are stacked against them. This season seems to validate that perspective. After being left off the US Olympic roster, Clark elevated her play, leading the Indiana Fever into the playoffs. Suddenly, a deep playoff run is no longer a far-fetched dream of her most devoted fans, it's a realistic possibility recognized by top analysts. Rebecca Lobo, one of the most respected voices in women's basketball, has expressed confidence in the Fever's potential. At the same time, her nuanced take acknowledges that the postseason will be a steep learning curve for both Clark and her teammates, and that Indiana's coaching staff must address key areas if they hope to advance.
A first-round matchup depending on who they play. Right now they're seeded to play the Connecticut Sun, and this is a team, and the last time that these two teams matched up, Indiana did win that game. But the big concern for Indiana, of course, and you heard Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston joking about it on the podium, is they don't have any playoff experience. Janae, their starting lineup has a combined 0 games of playoff experience. Their entire roster has only 9 games of playoff experience. So that's the question.
Rebecca Lobo's numbers are hard to dispute, though it's worth remembering that Caitlin Clark has already proven herself in high-pressure environments like the NCAA tournament. At the same time, young teams often find ways to defy expectations, staying composed just long enough to steal a critical game or two. As Lobo notes, it's entirely possible for Indiana to advance past the first round, if they can manage their nerves and stay locked in. Still, the reality remains that a rookie-led team faces steep odds of reaching, let alone winning, the finals. For that reason, Clark's most passionate supporters may need to temper their championship dreams, at least for now. Earlier in the season, one of the most common criticisms of Clark was that her ball-dominant style didn't translate into victories. But as chemistry with her teammates has improved, her turnovers have dropped, and her shooting has sharpened, she has completely flipped that narrative. Her recent stretch of outstanding performances has directly fueled Indiana's climb up the standings, silencing many early doubters. Even the most influential voices in basketball media have taken notice. Rachel Nichols, one of the sport's most respected reporters, has highlighted how Clark's blend of individual brilliance and team leadership has transformed the Fever into a legitimate threat.
Caitlin Clark is the Rookie of the Year right now. She has impacted winning in a bigger way than anyone else in this rookie class. She leads all rookies in 4 or 5 of the stat categories, and her team is on pace to finish a lot better this year than it did last year, meaning she has impacted the overall state.
Rachel Nichols' remarks carry a sense of finality. She is fully convinced that Caitlin Clark stands out as the best player in her class, both as an individual talent and as a catalyst for her team's success. Statistics alone may not have been enough to crown her the top rookie, but Clark's ability to elevate the Fever to victories over quality opponents has made the case undeniable. As she continues to lead in ways that go beyond the box score, the last pockets of media resistance to her rise will likely crumble. Basketball is, at its core, a team sport, and one of Clark's most impressive qualities is how deeply she embraces that fact. She plays the right way, prioritizing winning over individual glory. Still, not everyone is ready to give her full credit. A few television personalities continue to push anti-Clark narratives, or at least attempt to redirect some of the attention for the WNBA's surge in popularity away from her. Among fans, ESPN anchor Monica McNutt is often singled out as one of Clark's most vocal critics, consistently finding new ways to make her skepticism known. Here is her detailed breakdown of what she believes Caitlin Clark is getting wrong.
Has seen its best viewership year to year. Now, yes, it has absolutely been taken over the top this year, but this has been a snowballing effect to get to this moment. And so while Caitlin is fantastic and I think she's going to have an incredible career in the WNBA, there are women that were worthy of coverage prior to her arriving, and I just will not be.
Technically, much of Monica McNutt's critique holds true. Still, without Caitlin Clark, the current explosion of interest in women's basketball almost certainly wouldn't have happened for another decade or more, leaving the hard work of veteran players largely unrewarded during their careers. McNutt overlooks the fact that Clark is accomplishing historic feats in just her first season. While McNutt's desire to highlight other players is admirable, her tone often comes across as tinged with bitterness. The argument that Clark is merely standing on the shoulders of giants also rings hollow. Even as a rookie, she is outperforming many of the very players who supposedly deserve the credit for the league's surge in popularity. Because this narrative has been repeated so often in the media, it has gained traction in some circles. Yet not everyone agrees. A number of high-profile NBA analysts have openly pushed back, emphasizing that Clark is not a byproduct of a broader trend but rather a driving force behind it. Perhaps the most eloquent rebuttal came from former NFL champion and popular sports podcaster Shannon Sharpe. He highlighted the double standard applied to Clark compared to other basketball prodigies and drew a telling parallel to another superstar who carried an enormous media spotlight early in their career.
Clark is good, but what about the women that laid the foundation? When Michael Jordan, wasn't nobody talking about Connie Hawkins. Nobody was talking about Wilt Chamberlain. Nobody was doing that. That's what we've always done. We talked about the player that's currently.
Comparing Caitlin Clark to Michael Jordan might sound like hyperbole, but that isn't the core of Shannon Sharpe's argument. His point is that extraordinary players should be celebrated on their own terms, without diminishing the contributions of those who came before them. Supporting Clark's rise and cheering for her to become the best version of herself should not be taken as an insult to other WNBA players, yet too many people behave as though it is. The reasons for that resistance aren't always transparent, which is why Sharpe's willingness to push back on these narratives is so valuable. If there's one media personality even louder in Clark's defense than Sharpe, it's Stephen A. Smith. The immensely popular NBA analyst has repeatedly brought up Clark in his trademark, sprawling monologues, and always in a positive light, though often tempered with a dose of realism. Lately, Smith has been especially bullish on Clark, making it clear to anyone who will listen that he sees her as a transformative figure for the game. Here's one particularly striking soundbite from a master of sports commentary and debate.
Caitlin Clark to Tiger Woods and how she's revolutionized fan engagement in women's basketball. Overall attendance, in case you missed it, is up by 20%, breaking TV viewership ratings and merchandise sales. Either way you slice it, it's clear that we're witnessing a golden era in the sport. Caitlin Clark, what'd I tell y'all?
Stephen A. Smith can be forgiven for sounding triumphant as he reminds everyone of his early prediction that Caitlin Clark would thrive in the WNBA. His confidence isn't based on hype alone. He points to the league's business metrics, which have surged since Clark's arrival. For Smith, Clark isn't just a golden girl, she represents the beginning of a golden era for women's basketball, one that could be remembered for generations. And he may be right. Beyond Clark, a wave of young stars is reshaping the league, adding to the sense that something historic is underway. At this stage, Clark's play has been so strong that she has left little room for debate. Even reporters skeptical of the bullying narrative surrounding her can't help but acknowledge her on-court excellence. Nick Wright, a basketball commentator known for his willingness to stir debate, is a perfect example. In a recent segment, he offered takes that are sure to irritate Clark's most devoted fans, but he also gave her the ultimate respect, recognizing just how special her rookie season has been.
Physical league, and Caitlin Clark is not, the amount of fouling or hazing or whatever she's dealing with is not outside of the bounds of all of WNBA history. There's just more eyes on it. Another thing that's true is this: she's been excellent. And people that are trying to act like she is a media creation, here is the full list of players in the top 25 this year in points, rebounds, and assists. It is 6 established stars in Caitlin Clark.
The notion that the intense spotlight on Caitlin Clark might shape how we interpret her treatment on the court is an intriguing one. Yet Nick Wright carefully avoids framing her solely as a media creation. The numbers alone place Clark among the league's elite, even as a rookie, leaving media commentators with little choice but to shower her with praise. The real questions now are how much praise is too much, how high her ceiling truly is, and whether early comparisons to all-time greats are premature. What's becoming clear is that a growing consensus sees Clark as every bit worth the hype. She has earned glowing reviews from some of the most seasoned NBA and WNBA voices. Perhaps the strongest signal of her impact comes from Skip Bayless, a commentator known for his skepticism and reluctance to be impressed. Bayless has expressed genuine amazement at Clark's performances, a rare endorsement that underscores just how far she has already come in redefining
running
expectations.
Away with the WNBA assists lead. She's 25 better than anybody else in the league. Pretty extraordinary for a rookie. Caitlin Clark, in a shock to me, has proven already to be a once-a-generation passer. I did not see that coming at Iowa. I thought scoring, yes, she's the all-time greatest scorer in the history of college basketball, men's or women's, but passing like this? I'm talking about gifted LeBron-esque bounce.
LeBron-esque bounce passing. This isn't the only example of experts highlighting Caitlin Clark's playmaking as the skill that truly sets her apart. While she doesn't share LeBron's physical advantages, Clark possesses the same rare court vision and uncanny ability to anticipate defensive reactions to her movements. Skip Bayless himself sounded genuinely surprised by the sophistication of her passing, and that, more than anything, convinced him she is a prime-time talent. This insight also explains why Clark has been so effective at the professional level. The constant threat of her passing makes scoring easier, as defenders are forced to respect every option. The majority of NBA analysts have expressed delight at her game, and even those who aren't naturally drawn to her have had little choice but to acknowledge her accomplishments. At this point, Clark is becoming a known quantity, and the growing consensus among seasoned basketball voices is a clear sign of her inevitable superstardom. All the controversies of her rookie season may soon be remembered only as footnotes in her legend. Before long, it could be taken for granted that Clark is the defining talent of her generation in women's basketball. What remains to be seen is how her media image evolves during her first playoff run, and whether those same reporters who praise her today will stand by her if her postseason performance falls short of perfection.